1984, I chose to go for a HIV test, and my results came back positive, and this year will be my 30th anniversary diagnosis, so I've seen really big changes, but back then it was like, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but back then there was no, there was no kind of like luxury of living a life with HIV,
And he died through AIDS. The dreadful thing about it was he wasn't allowed to die with that diagnosis because they had to put on the death certificate it was leukemia. One of the hardest things about accepting his death was that he couldn't die truthfully, and he had to be buried under a lie.
And the reason I chose to go for testing was the fact that my partner at that time had just been diagnosed HIV positive, and he went for post-counselling afterwards, and when he walked into the health visitor's office, the first words that came out of her mouth was the fact of, how does it feel to have 2 years to live?
He was HIV positive, and he hadn't had a relationship. He was diagnosed in 1983. I got him by the hand, and I asked him to trust me. And I stood him underneath this huge fir tree, and I reached up and pulled the branch, and the whole tree rained on him. And the look on his face of complete surprise and delight, it just started, because he hadn't got a clue that I was going to do that. Was just, it felt like there was a moment where the universe just opened up and said, this is who this man is, and you make a choice. You can choose to love him, or you can choose to walk away. And I chose to love him.
In 1994, I had my daughter. When I had my daughter, when she was 3 months, she was taking blood tests, and then she was tested HIV positive. And then actually the doctor told us that my daughter was not going to live up to 4 years. She was going to die very soon. So that's the thing that I had in my mind, that my daughter was going to die any moment from then.
And it was just his worst nightmare was that I would have contracted HIV, which I did through one miscondom. And I watched his soul crumple in front of me, and I really hope I never live to see that sight again, because it was like watching someone's life just go out of them, and yet I'm still having to live. It's really hard. And if I could change it, I wouldn't change it for me. I'd change it for him.
I then heard a sudden scream, and for some unknown reason I knew that it was my partner that was screaming, out of all people. So I went into his room, and that's where I saw him. He basically was just lying there with his eyes open. He said a couple of words. He then died on me. But the one thing was, he'd been diagnosed in '91. He'd lasted to 2000, so he had proved the health worker totally and absolutely wrong. He did last more than 2 years.
They told us she's positive, but it was too late. She couldn't even start the medication then. She passed away because of, she didn't know anything. She couldn't believe that it was her. She was positive. She left me with her daughter. She's now big girl, looking after us.
In 2004, because my mom, I knew, even though she was never tested, I knew she died of HIV. So I was always careful for myself and whatever I do. So when I met this guy in 2004, I went for an HIV test. So I did ask, so for him he told me he already had his HIV test and it was already negative. So it never came across me to say a person would lie to me about their status if they're positive, or they might not say anything, they will never say they're negative.
I had mixed feelings, really. after hearing that my daughter was HIV negative. I was happy at the same time. I was really angry because for the past 10 years, I lived in prison myself. My mind was like imprisoned, knowing that my daughter can die any moment from then.
And that was the worst birthday present I've ever got in my life. I was told, we're sorry, but you're positive, HIV positive. I said, excuse me, what do you mean? You know, it couldn't sink in my head, and I couldn't see myself being HIV positive. The last months I was negative. Now I'm entering something which I'll never come out of it, because I'll never ever go back to be negative.
When I went back to the hospital in 2007, that's when I asked him. I said, because that time I was even thinking of reporting him to the police. That's when he finally said, because I had to threaten him. He said, yeah, he knew he was HIV positive.
Taking a tablet every day. No. Again, I tried to look myself in the mirror, putting a tablet in my mouth, and I said, no, not today anyway. But I'm okay. I feel okay. So it took me a week practicing that tablet, because I'm going to be taking it forever. So I had to see how I'm going to be taking the medicine now.
And I was just completely devastated, because for a man of my generation, the only thing I thought of was, I'm going to die. I've got to 50. I thought I'd got away with it all these years, and now it's finally caught up with me when I least expected it.
But personally for him, he just couldn't deal with the fact of his status, so he decided to take his own life. His fear of discrimination, isolation and exclusion were too much, and that's why he decided to make that decision he made. It brought home to me, regardless, whether it was 30 years ago, 30 days ago, 30 months ago, the impact of a positive diagnosis.